Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
It's still a mess out there for drivers in the North County, and more rain is in the forecast. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Today, Caltrans announced it could be a while before commuters have full access to Highway 78 in Vista. It was supposed to reopen today, but crews found much more work to do than they originally anticipated. KPBS reporter Melissa May has an update.
I'm here on Highway 78, where all westbound lanes between El Camino Real and College Boulevard have been closed since last Wednesday for emergency sinkhole repair work.
The torrential rains that we've experienced since last November have caused accelerated deterioration and collapse of a culvert under Highway 78 that caused the sinkhole. The culverts are between 40 and 60 feet deep. According to Sean Rizzuto from Caltrans, that excavation depth forced the highway lanes to close for public safety.
It is a difficult culvert to get to, and we wanted to make sure that we got all the voids underneath the roadway removed so we don't have this problem in the future and we get a long life culvert. We're expecting to get 100 years out of this culvert replacement.
After further inspection, a total of 4 culverts need to be replaced. Crews have been working 24 hours a day and will continue to work even through the rain. Caltrans says the total cost for all repairs will be about $20 million.
Unfortunately, commuters who depend on Highway 78 will have to use alternative routes for the next couple of weeks. Due to the upcoming rain, the westbound lanes will remain closed for the rest of this week. And Caltrans has announced once those westbound lanes are repaired, they will be closing down the eastbound lanes for repairs too. Reporting from Vista, Melissa May, KPBS News.
The calendar says spring is here, but it sure doesn't feel like it in much of the country. Communities across California have been hit with powerful storms and destructive floods, and more brutal weather is in the forecast. We'll have a look at our full forecast coming up. Governor Gavin Newsom continued his tour around California today, this time in Imperial Valley. The valley contains one of the largest lithium deposits in the world. Lithium is an essential battery component as the state looks to transition to electric vehicles.
We had a crazy idea of signing an executive order to become the first jurisdiction in the country, only jurisdiction in the world, to require all vehicles sold in this, again, remarkable place we call home to be alternative fuel. I could not even imagine 4 or 5 years later, not only did we codify those goals, but you've now seen those goals advance.
And just yesterday, the governor was in San Diego to announce a proposal to fund a major expansion of housing and treatment for residents with mental illness and addiction. A mental health advocate tells KPBS's Alexander Wynn it's a step in the right direction, but she worries that it won't address all of the systemic failures.
Newsom says the plan is the next step in how California expands services for unhoused people, especially those with mental health and substance abuse disorder. He announced the plan yesterday as part of his 5-day tour around the state to highlight policy goals. He says it's much needed, as encampments have popped up on sidewalks and under freeway overpasses throughout the state, where people experiencing mental health crises are a common sight.
We're fooling ourselves that if we don't address that fundamental need, that we can turn this thing around.
Mental health advocate Linda Mims says the governor is heading in the right direction.
I like that these topics are being talked about, and I think that the Mental Health Services Act, which is now 20 years old, needs a rehaul.
Which is what the governor plans to do. State Senator Susan Eggman plans to introduce the ballot measure, which will also improve oversight for counties. Mims says that's important because some of the funds raised under the act were misdirected.
I want to see how they're going to do that, because that was supposed to happen with the original Mental Health Services Act.
She would also like to see the 1967 Lanterman-Petrus Short Acts reformed as well. The act authorizes involuntary psychiatric treatment in very limited circumstances. That, Mim says, has resulted in individuals refusing treatment while under psychosis and becoming homeless, such as Anita Fisher's son. She spoke at the governor's news conference yesterday.
Because of the gaps and the holes in the system, he ended up homeless on the streets. He ended up in jail. He ended up in prison. And I would ask myself why. As part of this measure, money would also be set aside to house more than 10,000 homeless veterans. The measure would go before voters on the 2024 ballot. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
20 years ago today, the U.S. and its allied forces launched a shock and awe invasion of Iraq. It led to more than 4,500 U.S. military deaths and hundreds of thousands of Iraqi deaths. As KPBS military reporter Andrew Dyer tells us, San Diego-based units led parts of the assault from the land and sea.
On March 19, 2003, more than 460,000 U.S. and coalition forces began airstrikes and the ground invasion of Iraq the next day. George W. Bush's administration and Pentagon officials tied Iraq to the attacks of September 11th. They also alleged the country possessed weapons of mass destruction. It took just 26 days to achieve the war's tactical objectives and depose Saddam Hussein. However, the dissolution of the Iraqi army and Hussein's political party led to an insurgency that would prolong the war for more than a decade.
So for me, Iraq has been a part of more than a 25-year career in the Army. And as a military historian studying our nation's relationship with war, it's been an integral part of understanding who we are and what our foreign policy has been for the last quarter of a century, if not more.
That's Greg Dottis, the director of the Center for War and Society at San Diego State. Dennis graduated from West Point and served in Iraq as an Army second lieutenant in 1991 during Operation Desert Storm. Dottis says a series of false assumptions among U.S. war planners underpinned the challenges in Iraq.
We assumed it would be a Desert Storm Part 2, and clearly those assumptions did not play out.
San Diego-based military units would rotate in and out of the region for the duration of the war. Camp Pendleton-based 1 Marine Expeditionary Force, including the 1st Marine Division, led the Marine Corps' initial ground invasion. Locally based special operations units, including Navy SEALs, operated in the country, and San Diego-based Navy ships, including the aircraft carrier Constellation, provided air support and strikes from the Persian Gulf. Almost 4,500 U.S. troops were killed in Iraq, while estimates of Iraqi deaths range from 150,000 to more than 500,000, including civilians. Dottis says one lesson to be learned that might be difficult for many Americans is simply that there are limits to what we can do militarily overseas.
As we move forward as a nation, I think we have to have these uncomfortable conversations and more honest conversations about our faith in war and the limits of what we can achieve when we go to war.
In a video released today, the Marine Corps recognized the 20,000 Marines and sailors who participated in the initial invasion, most of which were attached to local units. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
Los Angeles County schools workers are preparing to go on a 3-day strike for better pay and working conditions. Thousands of cafeteria workers, bus drivers, custodians, and teachers' assistants plan to walk out starting tomorrow. As Camila Bernal reports, the district superintendent says the strike could end up closing schools.
The signs Jose Tovar is making will be used Tuesday, when a 3-day strike is expected to force school closures in the second largest district in the nation.
We're not asking for the world, but just, to live above water.
Tovar, a custodian with a full-time job at an early education center, says he makes about $25,000 a year.
I love my job, especially I do with our 5-year-olds, 4-year-old kids, and make sure to keep it clean for them. But sometimes you don't feel appreciated, respect.
And respect is what his union says this strike is about. While asking for more money, some members have reported harassment for doing so.
Some have been harassed to the point where they've lost their job, they've lost income, or they generally just get are intimidated.
SEIU Local 99 is a union representing thousands of cafeteria workers, bus drivers, custodians, and other school workers. But the teachers union is also joining the strike in solidarity.
Let's go to the table.
LAUSD Superintendent Alberto Carvalho is hopeful that the two sides will come to a monetary agreement and says harassment claims are being reviewed.
We have not been presented with compelling evidence that there's widespread abuses. Are there issues? Yes. Each one of them is vigorously investigated, and consequences are applied on the basis of the merit of the allegation.
The union says avoiding a strike is unlikely. Instead, they want to shine a light on minorities and low-income workers who keep the schools running.
I like what you did.
They see this as a wake-up call for other districts in the U.S. to fund education.
Elected officials throughout the country, federal and state, should see what's going on here and think this is happening in just about every district in this country.
The superintendent also believes that when they come to an agreement, the rest of the nation will use it as an example.
I believe that it will be precedent-setting for the country, and I will take pride in it, as will the union, for these are some of the lowest wage earners in our community.
Both sides worry about the students who may suffer greatly from school closures.
Once you're forced to shut down a school, you eliminate some of the protections and rights that children have. The right to food, the right to health, the right to social and emotional support, the right to mental support, the right to have their disabilities addressed in an adequate way.
But the union believes people like Jose Tovar need to make more money.
It's a struggle. It's hard. You know, sometimes like I'm thinking to myself, Lord, if I'm going to make it another day, you know, like this.
Because in the end, they say higher salaries for school workers will lead to better schools and better education.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, UN scientists warn that time is running out to prevent the worst effects of climate change. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A new study out of UC San Diego focuses on how spyware works and how secure the apps are. KPBS SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge says researchers found it's all too easy to install and to hack.
Spyware, also called stalkerware, allows you to see another person's texts, emails, phone calls, and photographs on their smartphone. It's often seen in cases of stalking or spousal abuse. Deputy District Attorney Ramona McCarthy says she's seen cases where stalking victims have had no idea how closely they're being watched when spyware is involved.
They've tried their best to minimize their public persona, so to speak, online, and yet they're still finding out that their former partner or current partner, usually former partner by the time it gets to this point, are somehow still able to follow them, know who the new person that they're dating, know their new job, and they're just wondering why.
And if you click on the icon, it tells you what the configurations are.
Alex Liu shows how spyware can intercept a text message and display it on a web portal. Liu is a PhD student at UC San Diego who specializes in cybersecurity. He says all you need is temporary access to a person's phone to set it up as a target for spyware. Liu's research revealed how spyware apps work and their level of security, which is not very high.
Oh, there you are.
He says many of them use unencrypted communication channels that are easily hacked over Wi-Fi.
If the app itself is hacked, the problem becomes much bigger because now your data can be exposed to the public. Right? I'm pretty sure you don't want whatever is in your phone to be leaked to the public.
There are many apps that can track another person's smartphone, such as Life 360 or other apps that let parents see where their kids are. An app is called spyware when it is implanted without the target's knowledge. Though the apps are often used for stalking, Liu says that's not how companies market the apps, as they suggest it has the consent of both parties.
So usually they would say, okay, you need the other party's consent. Right, you have to click a button that says, yes, I understand that by using this app, I would acquire consent from the other party. But in reality, this is not enforced.
Computer science professor Thomas Ristenpart at Cornell University took part in Liu's study. He said on a recent visit to UC San Diego that he contacted customer service for some of these app companies and asked if their product would be good for tracking a spouse. He heard back from 9 of them.
One tool, to their credit, said, no, that's not what this tool is for. It's for, child safety, and that's probably illegal what you're suggesting, so don't do that. The other 8 of the 9 that responded with something along the lines of, yeah, our tool is awesome for that. Here's how you set it up to use it for tracking your husband.
Lou says the apps are easiest to install on Android phones, where there are fewer limits on where you can get your apps. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
People crossing the border will soon get an accurate wait time thanks to an app. This summer, travelers on both sides of the border will have access to real-time data as the San Ysidro and Otay Mesa ports of entry. The free mobile app will also be available at Otay Mesa East when it opens. It's part of a collaboration between Sandag and Caltrans, which installed 6 miles of sensors to calculate how long the line is. A famous San Diego landmark is in need of repairs, and the city wants to hear from you. They're holding community workshops to gather input on plans to repair or replace the Ocean Beach Pier. At 56 years old, the pier is nearing the end of its service life. Due to storms and high surf, it is currently closed as the city seeks state and federal grants to repair it. Today is Nowruz, the day Iranians and millions around the world celebrate the Persian New Year. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado visited the House of Iran, where they had a traditional table set with a new addition.
So typically, this is what's called half seen. The word half means 7.
It's not your ordinary Monday. March 20th is the first day of spring. But for millions of people around the world, it's extra special. They will be celebrating a new year. The Persian New Year called Nowruz. Mehdi Moin and his family just welcomed the new year.
We are going to be receiving the new year with hopes for prosperity and health and better days for people in the world, all over the world, and in particular for Iranians inside Iran.
Moin is on the advisory board of the House of Iran in Balboa Park. He says the celebration does not include religious ceremonies, but the message is universal and represented in the traditional table set for Nowruz.
Nowruz for us is a joyful event, right? And to celebrate it, basically the start of it is at half seen, which is a table that we have set up over here, reading the word 7. And seen is the letter S. So there are 7 items at least on this table. Each one of them have a meaning in our tradition and culture. Coin is in Persian is sekke, and that signifies prosperity. You see this grass that is growing, and that's again health. Apple that you see over there again is a sign of prosperity.
He says because it's also a springtime celebration, many of the items represent new life, like the egg. And this year, many families will include something new at the table, the words woman, life, freedom, that symbolize the resistance for women's freedom in Iran. It started with one woman.
It matters to them. The 3 items in that motto, in that slogan, in that mission statement, if you would, basically signifies the importance of woman. Of course, life, and life without a woman would not be possible. And of course, freedom.
Just before the moment when day and night are equal or 12 hours long, everyone will be gathered around the table.
And at the time that the year turns, which would be 2:25 today, this afternoon, everybody will, joyfully greet one another.
The celebration lasts almost 2 weeks, and on the 13th day, they will be tossing out the greenery along with all of the bad luck.
Nowruz, Piruz, and I want to wish all the Iranian Americans around the world, as well as the Americans, Nowruz, Piruz.
The House of Iran will have a celebration to mark the holiday on Sunday. Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
Hi, well, we have some active weather on the way. Let's start you off with your weather headlines. Widespread precipitation late Monday into Tuesday. Gusty winds with this system hitting SoCal with below average temperatures through the middle of the week. Tonight around Metro, we're dropping down to a low of 56. Around San Diego, a little rain late. That's going to be the story along the coast. And even as we make our way more inland, Borrego Springs dropping down to 50, Mount Laguna 33 with some showers. But a lot of that rain is going to start to push through late Monday into early Tuesday as we're tapping into another atmospheric river event causing flooding concerns. We have high wind warning from Newport Beach down to Oceanside, San Diego, even Chula Vista. Similar story through Borrego Springs, Julian, and Pine Valley. We're talking gusts as high as 60 miles per hour, so it is going to be a blustery Tuesday. That's going to be in effect through Tuesday evening. We also have this winter weather advisory in effect through Julian, through Pine Valley. That's going to be in effect through Wednesday evening as we're tapping into some snow as well. This widespread rain starts to push in late Monday. This is around 1:30 a.m. Tuesday Pacific time, impacting from LA down to San Diego. We have reds and oranges and yellows embedded within this, so it's going to be heavy rain and it's going to be widespread throughout your early Tuesday, even heading into Tuesday morning around 10:15 a.m. Pacific time. Still seeing that rain pulling through. That's going to be your story through Tuesday, and we are talking some big rain, 4 to 8 inches along the LA basin, but as we head down towards San Diego, we could pick up 2 to 4 inches. It's going to be rainy across the area for tomorrow, 60s along the coast. Ramona rolling in with a high of 55. Now here again, rainy along the coast, still a few showers Thursday, but we're back up to the 60s by Friday. More inland, also dealing with rain through the middle of the week, but we rebound to the 60s by Friday and Saturday, a lot warmer. Now as we head towards the mountains, we could even mix in some snow. We are talking between 6 to 12 inches in those areas like Pine Valley. Thursday, showers around. We are in the 40s Friday, back down to the 30s by Saturday. Now in the desert, some rain through Tuesday, but we dry out quickly there, but it is going to be windy, back up to the 70s by Friday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
The SDSU men's basketball team is still alive in the March Madness tournament. The Aztecs took care of business this weekend, beating Furman University, and that makes them one of the 16 remaining teams. SDSU will face the Alabama Crimson Tide, which is one of the top-ranked teams. The game is set for Friday afternoon at 3:30 Pacific time. On this first day of spring, there is a new beginning for the pageant circuit here in San Diego County. The Miss California Extraordinaire competition is open to girls up to 21 years old, with some of the contestants as young as preschool age. KPBS education reporter MG Perez introduces us to a couple of the contenders.
4-year-old Ramelia Joy Masella and her mother Kirsten are dance partners. Yeah. They have been for quite a while.
Come on, sis. Oh my gosh. Look at you.
Mom calls her Sis. Most everyone else calls her Remy. She is quite the fashion plate with a smile that is ready for the runway.
Her body works different than us. She doesn't have words yet, but she uses icons to talk and just lights up every room she walks in. You want some water? You want to eat? But you want a squeezy pouch.
Remy was born with low oxygen of the brain. She had an injury at birth, which resulted in cerebral palsy, so she is differently abled. With the love and support of her family, that also includes her dad Aaron and her 2 brothers, Malachi and Emmerich, along with their live-in nanny and grandma who lives close by. The Masellas are a picture-perfect family, ready to support Remy in what she is about to do next.
Remy loves to dance, and so we are thinking about doing a silk stance so she can use her arms and show her ability to move and groove to the music.
Remy is registered as a contestant in the new Miss California Extraordinaire pageant coming in July. Bree Gels is the pageant's founder. She is also the former Miss U.S. And beyond the crown, she is a mom, wife, and a speech pathology assistant who works with neurodiverse children.
If you have a disability, come be a part of this awesome family. It's not just an organization. It's not just a chance to get on stage and look beautiful. It's a family.
Gels has begun holding mentor meetings and photo shoots for those girls already registered, preparing them for a traditional formal wear competition and the talent portion that will allow them to shine most. Give us your best Veruca salt.
I want it now. That's the best.
That's pretty good. 16-year-old Kira Herschel is an actress and a blossoming comedian. She is also living with a traumatic brain injury she suffered when she was hit by a car crossing the street with her mother as a very young child. That was then, this is now.
OMG.
Kira has always been active and persistent in shattering stereotypes of differently abled people.
It's not reality at all. You need a good sense of humor, and you have to not be afraid to step out of your comfort zone.
Her dad and younger sister are also part of the family support system, nourished by her mother, who is her biggest cheerleader.
Just help her through the hard parts and celebrate through the good.
Led by the legacy of its founder, the Miss California Extraordinaire pageant in July will have beauty and talent and so much more.
It always, I'm right? Society sees a wheelchair. Society sees a handicap, a disability. And this pageant is going to allow our society to see what's under all of this.
Meanwhile, in the Masella household, there is hope for the future and plenty of joy, which, remember, is Remy's middle name.
I can't imagine that life would be as rich without the blessings and the lessons that these kids are teaching us.
This is an education that everyone involved will learn by heart. MG Perez, KPBS News.
What a terrific story. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.